it's not actually going on the air. Air's just getting there, which means right now, since we're actually live, I guess I can get going. And then their mics don't need to be in program one to go over. Any other mics do need to be in program one to go over, and of course on. Now we have a woman on, so her voice is probably quieter, which means we're gonna want her like a little bit higher than my dad's, and kind of like that. And then of course we just always want to make sure that we set it up for her to be on the right mic. If we have her start on this mic, not only will she not actually go on air because we'll do the wrong one, but also of course we won't go left. So make sure she's set up here, this mic, and she has headphones. We want to make sure he has headphones. Pretty cool. And let's pick which headphones she's gonna have because there's two right here. You're tucked in here, and this one's over here. She's gonna be. So I guess. Well, if we take these ones, and she doesn't use these, and they're in sight, which looks weird. Maybe what we do is we want to like roll these up nice, like kind of behind here at a sight, and then she'll use these ones maybe. Whatever you think for like camera. Think about the camera angle. What they see over here. But she can only have one headphones. So like which headphone? Just pick which headphones she should use and how you can make the other one look nice. Or if you can take it out, but I don't think you can take it out. I'm just tightening up the wire. You put it back there, but there was like a bunch of wire. You still have like a bunch of wire color, which kind of confuse her. So what I would do is if we are going to put it here, have like one wire going across. So like it's the least conspicuous, doesn't confuse her as much. Than this, and then yeah, cool, awesome. And then as she comes over, we also always want to tell her.
Okay, we got it. We got it. We're good. Is the live stream going?
Live stream on YouTube's going right now, but not Facebook.
Okay, so even though we have commercials, we're never completely offline. We're streaming the whole thing. So everything is official from this point, being in here. Zach, do we have the camera set up properly?
Yep.
Did you focus it too?
Yeah, it should. Yeah, it's pretty focused.
Focused it.
Yeah.
The new chip, it had you reformat it, right?
Yeah. Wait.
When you put the new chip in after changing the name, it should ask, hey, do you want to reformat?
Yeah, I did.
Do I say here?
Yes, ma'am. Right
Okay.
here. That's your mic. So we say, that's your mic, and these are your headphones.
Okay. Let's see if I got my
So we always say, hey, I'm training Sean over here, and then we always tell them, hey, there's a little dial here, for volume.
Okay.
Live, cool. Scooch this in a bit. This way. And let's use this headphones. Those are on. We're pretty good in here. Well, make sure the camera is rolling when it's time. Which could be now. I mean, it's at 4 minutes still. Yes, that's probably good.
script, and remember, we still need a topic for the segment 5.
Okay.
For you to think of, so that we need that by the bottom of the hour, so that I can promote it when we get to the end of segment 4. So think about.
Yeah, I was thinking about how the legacy of Martin Luther King,
Oh, that'd be great.
so aligns with kind of what we're going through today and having to reevaluate how we move forward.
Sorry, we're gonna have you come up a little bit to about there. These have very short pickup patterns,
Okay.
so make it so it's comfortable for you to just be about 2 inches off. And this way, also, I can tighten up the camera shot a little bit. Beautiful. Okay. We are on about a minute.
Okay.
Now we have fun.
I know.
I get prepared, and I like to be very prepared.
Do I need to put these on?
Yeah, you can put those on. The volume is where it's plugged in.
He showed me that little.
Yeah. Okay, so we got 1 minute.
Okay.
So basically, and I'll give you a little bit more of it, this means wrap it up. If you ever see me do that, 10 or 15 seconds, land the plane and hand it back to me.
Okay.
Otherwise, very high energy, because radio is just voice, so it shrinks you down. So that's why we go over the top. If you do normal, it sounds sleepy.
Okay.
So do a little more presence, not volume, it's more of an intensity. The faster you talk, the more information we can get out, because it's
Gotcha.
radio. And I'll give you other time cues later, but overall, even vocalizing emotion, because or else it stays in the booth. So you'll see me, I talk with my hands, but it's all to help me pace my voice and do things like that. So just makes more of a dynamic
Okay, cool.
production. But otherwise, this is us, loving the community and having a good conversation. So,
Very good.
okay, here we go. Thanks for being on. Remember? Sean missed the shofar blast yesterday on there, and so he made sure to highlight it today. I love that. He brought the music down, everything. Hey, this is Chaim Goldman, the Watchman, and welcome to the Peak News. So happy to have you here, and happy Juneteenth to you. Bet you didn't expect that one.
No, I didn't.
Here on conservative radio. Happy Juneteenth. Yes. This is a holiday. It's an official holiday. It's a national holiday. And yes, it has a lot of controversy around it. And we love controversy here on the show because we say the quiet stuff out loud. And so, yes, today we're going to be honoring, maybe that's a better way to say it. I don't know that we're celebrating it here. I don't have any special hat on. We don't have any party favors or anything like that. But we are honoring this day because, guess what? Ending slavery is a big deal. Slavery is still going on. Well, I mean, we have sex slavery in this country and all kinds of other stuff. So it hasn't ended, but as far as an official policy of the government, as far as being legal, we did something really, really special in this country, and it should be celebrated. And I'm all, as a Jewish person, and I celebrate the biblical feasts, and I feel that we're the ones who get to determine, how we do that and how we show everybody that those who were slaves should get to determine when this were and who have their ancestors in that. But what we also have to admit is that there's a lot of controversy around it, and there's sort of like this weird feeling around it. And as part of saying the quiet stuff out loud, I'm going to admit that I sort of had an impression of Juneteenth that you may have, and we're going to seek to get to the bottom of it all in an hour today. We're dealing with the history and the controversy of Juneteenth. And we have as our guest and co-host for the program today, Shirley Martinez. She is president of the Pikes Peak Diversity Council, a D8 school board member. That's Fort Carson area. And She is what is your title within the MLK preservation?
President.
You're president. I didn't write that. President of the Reverend Martin Luther King Preservation Society. Shirley Martinez, thanks so much for being on the Peak.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
And then thanks for willing to be controversial
Of
about
course.
it also. Now, I want to do a shout out, as I do, to all of our sponsors. We appreciate all of our sponsors so much. They are the ones who really get this on the air because we are local citizens reporting on local news and supported by local businesses. That makes us hyper local, and that's what makes us really, really different. It's not just about Juneteenth, it's about Juneteenth here in Colorado Springs. And Shirley's been at events all day, and this is part in the middle of events.
Yes.
Ran in here to do a promotion. Glad it timed out.
Yes.
And
Thank you.
didn't conflict, but you have an event tonight down in Fountain that people can still go to.
Yes, they can.
So we'll be talking about, what time is it tonight?
It'll be at 6:00 tonight at the Fountain Valley YMCA,
Okay.
and it's a free event.
Free event. So we'll be getting into that later. So if you haven't had enough or you haven't had any, and after the show today, you're like, you know what? Because folks, here's the deal. I'm a very opinionated person, extremely. People actually don't think that I have an open mind, but I do. I mean, how could I do my job if I didn't? But I have an old friend who used to say, I'm going to defend my truth until you can show me a better truth. So that's the deal for me. So I went down with my family on Father's Day to the Pride Fest down there. And, personally, not my lifestyle. I don't think it's child friendly. I don't know that it's great for our community. But you know what I saw down there? A lot of my neighbors, lot of fellow citizens, just people that have a different opinion, and
Getting along.
and different stages of undress, and also stuff that I don't find kosher, but you know what? They're still my neighbors, and so we have to figure this out. We have to, because one thing I think we all do, we love Colorado Springs. Like, that's why we're here. People that say they hate something, it's like, leave. Mm-hmm. So they obviously don't hate it enough to leave. And I think that they love it. And I think that they appreciate it. And I know I do. And if we can come together on that, and then also say, you know what, that's not my thing. You have your Juneteenth thing. I'll do Passover. You do Christmas. You know what? That's the culture you want to do. But we're still in a culture together here in Colorado Springs. And I believe, and maybe I'm just an eternal optimist, that we can figure this out better than anywhere else in the country. And I think that we can be a model for it here. I think Colorado Springs has a great destiny of, I won't call it tolerance, respecting one another. And we do that, and it will be extremely powerful. And I think we'll all enjoy living here a lot more. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. It's Juneteenth, and you're listening to The Peak. We'll be right back. Cool. I never know what I'm going to say there, but that's
But thank you for going down there and at least trying to get your own understanding.
Yeah, and we're also report on it
Yeah.
here. We cover quite a bit because there's just the same way with Black Lives Matter. There's Marxism. There's stuff going on that is not.
But you can
Yeah.
say that about a concert that you go
Yeah,
to,
for
a
sure.
rock concert, or I went to a concert and I was like, oh heavens, I didn't know that was going to be here. I went to the Indianapolis 500, went into the middle.
By the way,
never-
I'm sure you know enough of the history, but if you want to
Yeah.
reference that at all, you can.
Yeah, but yeah, Indianapolis 500 was quite an experience for me. What they do in that middle of the track is something to,
Well, what was it?
you could do anything in there that you want. In the middle of the Indianapolis 500 track, there's a middle part that people sit on bleachers, and there's cops up in little things. We went there for something for the
What do you
military.
mean, like stuff that's not family friendly?
Yeah.
Really?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
That's the problem. We need to. I mean, the Pride Fest, they could do a closed event. at the
You know
Pride
what?
Fest. They're
It's way-
deciding to do an open event.
It's way better, I'd say, than it was 8 years ago.
Okay.
Way better. 'Cause-
I hear Denver is like 10 times.
Yeah, no, it's
work.
way better because they
Okay.
really stopped doing some of this stuff that was very suggestive and selling things that shouldn't have been being sold.
Yeah.
It was bad
Okay.
bad 8 years ago.
But honestly, I think if they want it to be like that, it should be a closed event. It should
Which
be
they
18 and
used to
above.
have
Did they?
at the America the
But now
Beautiful
they
Park.
want to bring children in, and I just don't find it a place.
Well,
for,
they did it with children at America the Beautiful Park, but they had places where they had it fenced in
Oh.
in the park.
Well, I have my children. They do have an area where you can buy alcohol and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
they do.
So,
Yeah.
so my children, they can. Hey, can I self-identify as a person who's old enough to drink? And they like, hey, come on, self-identity is what it's all about.
Yeah.
Let's, so, but we had fun down there. Strange thing to do on Father's Day, but that's
Yes,
the day
it is.
That's the day.
I was down there for a little bit on Saturday.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. We're doing Carmen Line first. So you have things to say about the Carmen Line. You have things to say about Indy. You have
Yeah, I
things-
can.
Okay. So I will, if you know the reference, like in sports commentary, I'll do play-by-play. You do color commentary.
Okay.
So I'll introduce the topic and you give your opinion.
Okay.
It's your opinion. You're the guest. You get to give it. Gave you all that, upbeat, things like that. When we get to the next segment, you'll have about 4 minutes to do your monologue. So I'll end up giving you 3, 2, 1, and
Gotcha.
this means 30 seconds.
Okay, gotcha.
Because wrap up isn't enough time.
Okay.
So 30 will be like, and you'll pace yourself and realize how fast or slow it's going, and try to hit you can make some bullet points on
Okay.
that. So never want to look down and blank on.
Yeah.
So if you want to, and also make sure you hit your points. So if you want to make some notes before that, but that's not this segment. That's the
Okay.
next segment. Otherwise, yeah, feel free. I mean, you've been more than, well, Black Church is more speak out. It's not so quiet. You've been chiming in more. Yeah. Yeah. Welcome back to the Peak News. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. You're listening on AM 1460 and FM 101.1. The Answer across the entire Pikes Peak region. We are hyper-local news talk. And I started to do a shout-out to sponsors, then I just went off on a tangent. I get to do that in the first. But I want to do a shout-out to our platinum sponsor, Springs Dentist and Dr. Craig Summer, Holistic Dentistry in Colorado Springs. They're our family dentist. If you're into natural health at all, they don't do the fluoride. They don't do the root canals. They do a lot of really other cool procedures there. And Dr. Summer is just a great guy, friend of mine for many years since we got to Colorado Springs. Check out Springs Dentist for everything that you need in that area, family dental. So we are covering Juneteenth today, not in the headline segment. We're about to do the headline segment, but we have on the program today for the hour, our guest is Shirley Martinez, school board member at D8. That's how we get in today's Education and Media Day. How does Juneteenth, we're always educating you. How does Juneteenth, well, Shirley is a D8 school board member. She's also president of the Pikes Peak Diversity Council and president of the Reverend Martin Luther King Preservation Society. And we're talking about Juneteenth today, both the history and the controversy of it, so that hopefully, like we like to do here, talk about things and get to the bottom of them and expand understanding, come to some level of understanding, maybe disagreement, but we can do that too because we're Americans. We should be healthy enough emotionally to disagree on things. But Juneteenth is a controversial holiday, became a national holiday, I guess, 4 or 5 years ago. And I think we should wrap our minds around it more because for those Americans who it's very important to, I understand and I believe that the ending of slavery in America is a huge feat that we accomplished as a nation after a very bloody war. And we should celebrate it in some way. So we'll be getting into that later. But first, some headlines. First of all, you probably heard, and we just neglected to talk about it yesterday, the Carmen Line annexation ballot proposal, a big no. About 24% of Colorado Colorado Springs voters voted. Folks, that's pitiful. First of all, I want to say the ballot comes to your house. There was one question. And I don't live in Colorado Springs. I live in the county. I would have voted. I would drop it off. I like dropping off. I don't like, but you could have checked one box and sent it in. This is important. These things are important. I'm hoping that those who are listening to this show, if you live in Colorado Springs, you voted. But folks, when we're putting 20, 25% at elections, we got to step up. We got to step up because this is important. But big no, about 80 to 20 on that. Most likely what's going to happen is the developers are going to go to the county now because they still want to do something with their land. So it's going to become a county issue. I was actually talking with Corey Applegate, one of our county commissioners today, and he was saying, that it's probably, he feels it's probably going to end up at the county for that to be decided on. But for now, no annexation of that land and no annexation into the city. It would be allowed by the county. Shirley, what's your take on Carmen Line and development overall in our area?
Well, I don't think that there should be. I mean, with development, I think there's good development. I think we do need to, provide housing and, move our cities, because I'm in Fountain, to a place where people can have a place to stay, a place to live. But if you look at the transportation that we have right now, transportation is not well run. It is within the city, but when you're talking about going out outlier areas, there's not a lot of transportation. Plus our roads. Think about our roads, all the potholes. If there's an accident, you might stay wherever you are for 2 or 3 hours. And I just know my friends that got to vote, because I didn't get to vote for it, they felt like we don't understand a lot about what this is and why we're building all these homes. What is it that Schriever really needs? What is it that we really need on that side? Because right now you have one accident on I-25 and over there on Mark Shuffle out in that area, and you can't get anywhere around the city. Plus, crime is increasing, and we're seeing, the time for police to be able to get somewhere, it's difficult. That means new everything. And I believe, because I didn't even know what it meant. I just saw some signs that said some boxes, but it didn't really explain anything. And I think that's what triggered a lot of people to say no.
No. I mean, yeah, that tends to happen. If people don't understand something, better to say no and wait. We actually did a whole program on it here with Dave Donaldson and Eli Bremer debating it. We call it a civil discussion. So people are still interested in that, want to get it. It's on our Facebook. You can see the whole program on there. So next up, as this is Media and Education Day, the independent newspaper, Colorado Springs Independent, it's coming back, but with a different name. As you've been tracking through here, the Indy for 30 years was a very, and purposely so, left-wing newspaper. It was bought a year and 2 years ago by J.W. Roth and Kevin O'Neill, developers. They didn't exactly know what to do with it. They tried to turn it into something more toward the center. And then Dirk Hobbs, who knows what he's doing because he's a publisher and he's been doing this a long time. And I know Dirk, he got it as part of the Business Journal because they had the Business Journal and that was competition for him. So he took it out and he's folding that in and making it one business paper. Right. But they have decided after doing focus groups to not call it the Indy. They think that name, because of what it was for 30 years, is sort of damaged. So it's going to be called the Southern Colorado Insider or the SoCo Insider. And Dirk is committed to having it be a real newspaper, although he's tending to want to stay out of politics because it was known as a very divisive paper. But just like with the Peak, he wants to cover the whole territory, and he wants to have it be a what I would call a legitimate newspaper, not one that has a specific bias. And I believe that is awesome, and congratulations to Dirk for doing that, for covering this and covering our region, because I think every town, especially of this size, should have at least 2 newspapers, not one, because, just like the Peak, we're here to keep everybody accountable. There needs to be a level of accountability even within our own industry. So, Shirley, what do you take of the rebranding of the Indy? And it's going to be we're going to be getting it starting this summer. Once they have enough advertising, they'll go to 2 a month, but they're going to start with 1 a month.
Okay, so I did see that. It came across my email. I used to work with the group, the Indie group, because we were cultural, a lot of cultural. And so I think one of the things that we've been missing a lot around here is they used to do the Mountaineer, the Air Force one. They used to do a lot of that, keeping us involved in what's going on in the military. I'm hoping that that's part of the immersion that they're doing. And they're not just doing something like you would do in the Colorado magazine, like, this event and that event. I'm hoping it's really something we get our teeth into.
Yeah, and in talking to Dirk about it, because he does the radio. Actually, on Fridays in our time slot, that Dirk has his business journal. Maybe he'll turn it more into an insider thing. But congratulations to Dirk. And yes, we'd love to see a paper like The Peak, something in print like The Peak that covers everything at the local level. And who knows, maybe with citizen journalists and things like that. I've tried to put that.
Good idea.
I've tried to put that in his ear that the people we're training up to be citizen journalists here might like to. Also write in the paper. So we only have a minute left. Real quick, Academy D20 loses $70 million in federal funding for Air Academy High rebuild after securing $49 million in funding through a bond vote last November. D20 will now rethink its rebuild for the oldest high school after losing over $70 million in federal funding. We only have about 30 seconds. You're a school board member. How do you overcome something like that?
It's hard to overcome, especially because a D20 school, especially on a base, they don't get any taxes for their schools. So losing something like that is significant. And a lot of schools that are aligned with the military, they don't have, they have to get those things done because they don't do them very often.
Okay. Well, we're going to be going into the D11 school system to be teaching broadcast journalism, and thankfully that is funded. But we're a little less than 70 million, so I think we're squeaking by. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. We're observing, celebrating, honoring Juneteenth today with Shirley Martinez, and we'll be right back. Okay,
Hey.
great.
And I know Corey Applegate.
Okay,
I've known
sure
him
from Fountain.
He
Yeah,
was
when you-
he went to school with my son.
Okay. We're still,
I'm
we're
sorry.
no, I'm just letting you know we're
Yeah.
not off air. So anyway, I
no,
don't know.
it's nice having somebody from Fountain.
Okay.
That's all.
I like Corey. I knew him before. I mean, I don't you agree with him politically or whatever, but
Yeah,
he's
no,
just-
he was.
I find him to be just, he's a pleasant person, and I think he really cares about the community, and just, he's a very normal person to me. That's what I find. And I guess his father was also before
He was
him
on council. Yes.
Yeah, so he grew up in that. So I think that's always good. I'm trying to raise my children to be active,
So am I.
community active. So you're like the one who you're the only one with children at the meetings and stuff like that a lot of the time?
No, because I would open up my meetings for people to bring their kids.
No, but I mean, but people don't bring them.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
That's how they learn.
I know. But like I have 6 children. They'd all be there at these, political meetings and stuff. And nobody's bringing their children. And the average age in the room is like 80. And I'm
Yeah.
like, what are we going to do when the children don't know? Even at the church, they won't. We've tried to get them involved because I do a voter guide, church voter guide.
Yeah.
Is my project. And even just getting interest among the young people to do anything in this realm, I think their parents, we've been
Trying
so,
to protect them.
well, I think they've seen it be just so divisive.
That's what I mean. They're trying to protect
Yeah.
them when the
Well,
kids don't know how to deal with things that
Right.
are
Oh, right.
divisive
Yeah, that's right.
because it's out there once they leave the house.
And they don't know how to handle it.
No, they don't.
Okay, we're on page 3. You're going to be doing about 4 minutes. I'll give you those time cues. Keep your energy up. If you fall short on it, I'll ask a follow-up question.
Okay.
So but try to fill the space because it's
All right.
yours. I won't chime in. You can just go. And then we're back in a minute and a half. Good. The show goes by quick.
Yeah. I have a question on the segment 3. Which one is the one where you want me to give a little bit of information about why I feel like I'm able to talk through this? Would it be the Juneteenth part?
Well, your background?
Yeah.
That's in the interview segment.
Okay,
after
gotcha.
this.
I just want to make
But,
sure.
but you can drop anything you want into this.
Oh, no, that's fine.
This is you writing to the newspaper and whatever you want.
Okay.
Welcome back to the Peak News. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. This is AM 1460 and FM 101.1, The Answer. And no, we're not here to lie to you. We're here to say the quiet stuff out loud and deal with the good, the bad, the ugly. You know, this is our community. It's really up to us to take care of it, to steward it, and to keep each other accountable. And that is the role of media, is to ask the tough questions and demand the answers. And hopefully over time, we will all come together to make this a better place, especially as we are a community here. It's not me. I'm not even, I'll happily be replaced by hundreds and hundreds of other people talking about the community. But we have here today, as we're observing, celebrating, honoring Juneteenth, Shirley Martinez, president of the Pikes Peak Diversity Council, D8 school board member, and president of the Reverend Martin Luther King Preservation Society. And now Shirley's going to share with us the 4-minute history, the 4-minute history of Juneteenth. Shirley Martinez.
Okay. So it actually started with Abraham Lincoln, the Emancipation Proclamation, of course, which was signed in January 1st of 1863, declaring that all persons held as slaves, that they are within those Confederate states, or henceforth shall be set free. So, that was kind of big, because we're talking about that has to go across the whole country. And then as it slowly starts going from state to state, which a lot of people figured that when that 1863, that was like Texas was the only area that didn't. Actually, there were other states that did not conform to that as well. So, and then of course in 1865, that's when General Granger went to Galveston and he let them know that they were free. So hence that celebrations happen throughout the United States. It's been going on since 1901 in all states, different ways. And, it's not something that we look at as this was controversy at that time. We were just celebrating like we do MLK Day, like we do Black History Month. And then all of a sudden we had Black Lives Matter. And then it became very highlighted because of the deaths of several African Americans. And then soon after that, President Biden made it a holiday. And so the controversy is everybody equates that to Black History Month or Black Lives Matter, when actually emancipation and these things have been going on for years. And we're now trying to find ourselves in pivoting on how we work through those.
So tell us, how is it celebrated?
Excuse me?
How is it celebrated?
So most people celebrate it with, picnics. They do activities in their churches. They do, like we did in the park, we do kind of where we eat, and we also bring individuals to come in and speak about the emancipation. And we talk about Opal Lee, they consider her the grandmother of Juneteenth, because she was the one that really pushed for it to become a federal holiday. So different areas kind of look at it differently and they celebrate it differently, but it's always with something about education, because we think education of it is so important that we don't forget why we're doing this. So yeah, and a lot of people do readings, or they make fans so you can see the information on the back. So lots of people do different things, but it's really about education, not about a party.
So why was it that most Americans, and I read some article about this, that until it became a issue of being a national holiday, that like 80% of the people in the country didn't know about it, didn't even really know that it existed. And yet it's not like Black culture hasn't been something that's been very infused into
Right.
American society. for a long time. How do you think that it just like was under the radar and only came up recently for people in the non-Black community?
Well, I think 80% is like too big of a number. I believe people knew about it. They knew we were doing this because here in Colorado Springs, we've been doing it for more than 20 years. So people knew about it. I don't think that they were just as interested in it because, again, like Black History Month and Hispanic History Month and the things, we do things during those time and people kind of know about it. Doesn't necessarily mean that they go to those events, but I think it was more prevalent because of Black Lives Matter, and it made it more context.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking about that when we come back with Shirley Martinez about Juneteenth. Why all the controversy? Cool. Okay, this is just a 2-minute break.
Okay. Yeah, I forgot to say people think it's a party.
What?
I forgot to say people think it's a party.
Hey, you sound great.
Okay.
Could you try to keep your voice a little consistent because you're fluctuating a little bit?
Oh, I think it's maybe I'm moving.
Are you moving around
I am.
too much?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
No, you're fine. You're totally fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's my
you'll-
chair.
You'll hear. That's why having the headphones on is important. You'll hear if you're getting quieter.
Okay.
Or louder. So he's in there riding it. So.
Yeah, I think I was doing this.
Okay. Well, you should be. You can move around the mic. So I'm not sure why, but.
And it might have been when I was doing this.
Okay.
Like,
So we're on page 4,
okay.
segment 4. So first, the authority. So we'll give your background, or you'll give your background. Then I'm going to give my theory that you touched on some, and let's talk about that. And then, how do you think we can
Move forward.
Move forward and turn it into something that's recognized as a legitimate, federal holiday, and even maybe include everybody, because I think everybody is happy that there's no slavery. I mean, and having a day to commemorate, the veterans, the whatever. I mean, we have these things. This is certainly one of the most major things. Not just. I mean, England did it first, but there aren't a lot of countries that have done it, to the extent that we fought a war over it.
Right.
I think it's sort of weird that we haven't, and maybe, I don't know, maybe it was because there was a June. But I have to tell you, I mean, I studied American history. That was a major of mine, and I grew up in Philadelphia, outside Philadelphia. I had never heard of this holiday.
And that's the education.
And yet we were a pretty secular Jewish area, but we had many Black people in our district. I was friends with, never heard of it, not in my life. So
It's because the education piece was missing.
Okay. Welcome back to The Peak. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. Happy Juneteenth to you. You're listening to The Answer here, AM 1460 and FM 101.1. And we have with us Shirley Martinez, president of the Pikes Peak Diversity Council, D8 School Board member, president of the Reverend MLK, Martin Luther King Preservation Society, and talking about Juneteenth. But before we get back to Shirley, I want to give a shout out to one of our sponsors that's I'm saying kicking my butt, which is Mayweather Boxing and Fitness, actually owned by Roland Rainey, one of our city council people. It's up there in Prominent Point, and so happy to have them as a sponsor, because as part of the sponsorship, I get to work out at the gym. And a boxing workout, I love it because it's not boring, it's active. You get exhausted doing it. So I suggest if we all know we need to work out, but we want to do things that are fun and interesting. They have great instructors teaching the classes. Go on Mayweather.fit, go to the Colorado Springs website and sign up for a free workout. Go check it out in Prominent Point up on the northeast side of the city. And thanks to Mayweather for sponsoring and also helping me get in somewhat better shape. Got to get over there more. So here, talking about Juneteenth, we're going to get into, I have a theory I'm going to share with you in a little bit about why this sort of went awry, why Juneteenth ended up being controversial when, if you look at it on its surface, there doesn't seem to be any reason for it. But before I get to that, Shirley, would you please give us your background? Where are you from? What's your background? How did you get involved with all these organizations and take on all these positions?
So I actually, my father was in the Air Force, and I was born in Waycross, Georgia. So during the 1960s, the late 1960s, I got a chance to see a lot of civil rights in Georgia, and then moved to Washington State, where my family was advocates and activists. And from there, being in the military for 23 years, working overseas, working in different states here in the United States, I was able to do a lot of activist work. And then I was working as a diversity council advisor while I was in the military, and also for Colorado Springs Utilities. I was their diversity advisor for almost 20 years. And then recently at the library district, Pikes Peak Library District, I was their DEI director. So I come with a lot of experience from being on different boards, working with different groups, being out there in the streets, understanding and learning about why we need to continue to do the work, and also why we need to continue to move forward, but to include people, to educate people. And now I'm retired, but I'm still out there doing things. And I'm on the Greenberg Center board as well.
So, whenever you bring up diversity or DEI or any of that, we are on conservative radio. You have people going, what is it? We actually just had a program on Tuesday with Colonel Ron Scott, who is seeking to get DEI and CRT out of the military for the things that he feels it was very negative. Maybe we need to do a whole other show on this, but if you can just shortly, how is it that we get these things, they seem well-intended, but then they seem to have this negative side, and it ends up in controversy. As a person who's held these positions, I'm sure you've been dealing with it a lot. How do we find a good middle ground on this so it's not polarizing?
I think you have to go back to the table and you have to talk about the things that got awry. Because like with any good thing, you could put so much into something and you could go too far. And you do have to pivot and come back to a place where everybody's understanding what you're doing and why you're doing it, and that you're qualified to be doing it, and that you're not getting any favors. I think we have to come back to that place where we have a discussion, civic discourse about it.
Well, I hope we can go back to that. So that's what we're doing today regarding Juneteenth. So this is my theory about Juneteenth, because for me, when I started seeing, I'm friends of people know Rachel Stovall. She helped us launch this program. She's been in media. She's a Black Republican. Ken Davis is a friend of mine. He teaches the Constitution. He's now the head of the El Paso County Republican Party. He's a Black Republican. And when I asked them about it, Ken told me, yeah, he grew up doing this, and Rachel celebrates it. So when so I can listen to them, and then I'm like, but so how did I get this sort of bad taste in my mouth about it? And I think what happened is, and you touched on this earlier, is that this really came to the fore when Black Lives Matter was raging. Cities were burning down. There was a lot of polarization. There were calls for reparation, and this whole thing that was going on really where, white people bad. And now suddenly there's this new thing that and for me, it's like, Kwanzaa, I'm not sure where that came from exactly, but it seemed at the time that it was made up. And it's like, okay, another thing to divide the Black community from the white community, and it's part of Black Lives Matter. And so now learning about it and saying, we should have a national holiday that celebrates emancipation. We absolutely should. And those who are most impacted by it should determine when that is, especially if there's been this long history on it. But I think it was a timing issue. I think it was like a public relations issue that most of the country learned about this at a time that it felt like, okay, now they're making something else up to divide us, and we don't need more of that. And it's sort of cemented like that. But now that I'm learning about it, I think we need to deconstruct that. We need to separate those elements. So talk about, how much of that do you agree with? Is my theory valid, or is there some other reason? Because somehow something that I don't think should be controversial became so darn controversial.
Well, and it was about the times. I mean, that was the thing they could latch onto, even though we had been doing it for years, educating, having our events at colleges and schools. And but I think they could latch onto that because that was something that polarized and pushed people of color to celebrate more vocally, even though we had been doing it for years. And I also believe they turned it into more of a party time versus about the emancipation. Nothing wrong with doing a party, but you have to give the history. You have to talk about that history. You have to get people to understand what happened then. And while you're doing that, you can celebrate it. And I think that's where we're all trying, especially those of us for today, we're all trying to get people to understand, let's celebrate it. And we can have, barbecue, we can have music, but we're going to tell you a story. We're going to tell you about the threads of Juneteenth and how it's all coming together and then where we need to go for the future.
Yeah, I think most holidays in the United States have turned just into a party. And we've lost,
The meaning.
I mean, by the way, why we take the day off on Labor Day is always
You're supposed to be working.
always an interesting thing, and we should know that because Labor Day did come in actually as a Marxist socialist
Yes.
thing, and we don't even know that. But we're really good, as a Jewish person, we're always telling the story
Yes.
on our fees. I mentioned Passover. It's always about the story. It's
Yes.
always about remembering it. So what are you doing in order to put the Juneteenth back in Juneteenth?
So 4 groups got together, the NAACP for Colorado Springs, the Pikes Peak Diversity Council, D2 with Woody Longmire's audio, and also the African American Genealogy and Historical Society. And we decided, you know what? On Juneteenth, on that day, we're coming together and we're having 4 events. And out of the 4 events, people will be able to go and talk about Juneteenth, understand the history, understand why this is so important that we have Opal Lee, who's the grandmother of Juneteenth. And by the way, she's in the hospital and she's sick. So we've been praying all day for her. But it's that important that we get back to explaining what it is and why we're doing it and why it's so important so that you do know and you do understand and so that you celebrate it with us.
So you're between events right now.
Yes.
Tell us about what happened before you got here, and then tell us what's going on this evening.
Okay. So this morning we had the NAACP Freedom dinner, breakfast. And then in the afternoon at 10 o'clock at Panorama Park, we had another event, Southeast Juneteenth event in the park for everybody. And again, it was to talk about emancipation. And then at the same time at 12 o'clock over at the African American Genealogy Museum, which is over off of Bijou in Oak, Colorado City, there was another event where they were actually doing portrayals of the history with people coming in and portraying it. And then tonight we're going to be doing a Juneteenth storytelling through music. So we're going to have young people actually helping us tell that story at 6 o'clock at Fountain Valley YMCA.
So regarding the story, I mean, we haven't had slavery here for a long time. So, I mean, is it really a celebration of freedom, or are some people taking it back because people with reparations and everything, it's just like, can we move on? So is there that spirit of let's celebrate the freedom? Because that's what we do. I mean,
Yes.
I mean, my people were slaves in Egypt for hundreds of years,
Correct.
but we celebrate the freedom.
Yes.
We don't blame the Egyptians anymore.
We don't want to hide the history or not understand the history, but moving forward, you can't have conversations without knowing that history.
Yeah, absolutely.
But as you move forward, you celebrate in new ways and you're understanding in new ways so that we don't go back to doing that.
Okay, real quick, because we have under a minute left, tell us about the event tonight.
So tonight we're having the event at the Fountain Valley YMCA. It is another Juneteenth event, and it is talking about storytelling through music. So from 6 to 8, we're going to have another event that will close out this amazing day of education for our community, and we're calling it across El Paso County.
Okay, and this is Threads of Freedom?
Threads of Freedom.
This tonight, and you can get more information about that, ppdiversitycouncilinc.org, ppdiversitycouncilinc.org, Threads of Freedom, Fountain Valley YMCA Theater, 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
Free event.
Yes.
Well, thanks so much for
Thank
that.
you.
When we come back with our final segment with Shirley Martinez, we're going to be talking about the legacy of Martin Luther King and how we can keep that going in these polarized times here in our region. Cool. Good segment. Great. Okay.
And I just met with Martin Luther King Jr.'s family in April.
Well, so what do you want to? We have. I don't think. Let me just make sure we don't have. I think we have the whole 7.5 minutes. We didn't seem to have a Jim Miller. I don't know if you know him, but we do a rant at the end. But I don't think we have one. Do we not have a rant? We have no rant. Okay, so this is a 5-minute segment.
Okay.
We'll have about 4 minutes of content. So what is it what are the like 2 points or 2 questions you want?
The main 2
for here.
points are
Yeah.
about Dr. King's Kingian nonviolence. It's Kingian, Kingian nonviolence. So whatever we do, people have a voice, but we need to do it nonviolently. And then the second thing is that there is still a dream. When I talked to Dr. Bernice King, his daughter, she says, don't give up on your dream. You still push forward with your dream, which is what we're doing.
Okay, and you'll
Yes,
You'll
I'll
explain what that
elaborate
is.
on that. Yes.
So first nonviolence,
Mm-hmm.
and then that there's still a dream
Yes.
for all of us.
For all of us.
For
For
all
all of
Americans
us.
worldwide. Yeah,
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, the people who represented Martin Luther King would have liked this
Yeah.
stuff. It's like, my goodness.
Yeah, I had a long conversation with his daughter when I went to meet with her because we're looking to try to bring in the granddaughter for the MLK breakfast in January.
Right.
So we think that that'll be our way to get to the youth.
Okay. Let me know about that.
Okay.
Because we're going to be in the high school, so let's.
Yeah. And we brought the nephew this year. He was here, Isaac Newton Ferris Jr.
I know an Isaac Newton who lives here, but he's Indian descent. Okay. So legacy of Martin Luther King?
Mhm.
Okay.
And there is a 3-day
What?
there is a 3-day event, Juneteenth Festival at the Citadel this weekend.
Okay. Cool.
That's the party.
Okay. You're listening to The Peak on AM 1460 and FM 101.1 The Answer. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. We're here with Shirley Martinez, president of the Pikes Peak Diversity Council, D8 school board member, and president of the Reverend Martin Luther King Preservation Society. And we've been honoring Juneteenth today. And as I always do at the end, I said, what do you want to talk about at the end of the show? She said, how about the legacy of Martin Luther King? So in this segment, we were going to talk about nonviolence and the fact that there's still a dream. We're still dreaming a dream.
Yes.
So Shirley Martinez, let's start with nonviolence and honoring Martin Luther King's legacy, because we just saw what's going on out in L.A. and around the country. There's no kings, that violent and people getting killed, lit on fire up in Boulder. It seems like violence connected to political views is acceptable in some ways in this country, and that everybody should be fearful of that, I believe.
Oh, yes. That was the one main thing that when I met with Dr. King's family, that they talked about, that nonviolence doesn't help you do anything. In fact, it negates the conversations that
You're
need
saying
to be had.
violence, though.
Nonviolence.
Oh.
Sorry. Violence. Sorry. So nonviolence is the way that we have to move forward, continue to move forward. But the violence is what negates the conversations that need to be had, because they're not thinking anymore about what our needs are. They're just thinking about what they need to do to get us away or get us out. And that's why the family still believes in the Kingian nonviolence of protesting and talking, and that the last resort would be something that you would do for, going after somebody violently, because that's just not who we are as a country. And we have to change that discussion.
How do you think we do that? Because it's really gotten to the point where it's, it seems like it's getting very acceptable, even attacking police.
Well, it's got to start at the top. So, our leadership has to start showing that they can also have conversations without calling out people, calling names. And this is anybody, and that we can have conversations. We may not agree, but we can still have those conversations. And if they watch behavior from above, our leadership, they're going to emulate it.
How do you feel it is here in the Springs? Do you feel that there's a racism problem here in the Springs?
I don't see it as much, the racism problem. I'm sure there are pockets in places. There are many of us.
About culturally.
Culturally.
Do you feel it living here?
Sometimes you can feel it. I will say that. Okay. Sometimes you can feel it. I'm hoping that with new people in place in our councils and on our boards, that we can start looking past that and start doing the work for the communities, like your roads, housing, that those are the things that we're talking about and not talking about race and these other things.
Okay, now let's finish with the dream.
The dream. So when I talked to Dr. Bernice King, one of the things she told me was, what are you feeling? And I told her, I feel like we're not doing the things we should be doing in reference to Dr. King's dream, that we're stepping back. We're backstepping like a lot. And she said, but you can still have a dream. She said, everybody can still have a dream. She said, if you all get together and start continuing with his dream, she said, we can work through these problems. She said, things always have a way of coming around. And she said, yes, things are polarized now. There's a lot of angst out there. But she said, activists and people have to start working together.
Okay. Well, I'd love that. Let's start that. Let's do that. Just here in our region.
Yes,
We can do it here. You told me there's a whole weekend event going on.
Yes, there's another event on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at the Citadel. That's a festival for Juneteenth. That's going to happen. And then my group is working on trying to bring Yolanda Renee, which is Reverend Dr. King's granddaughter, here for next year.
Okay, so there's parties at the Citadel. Can they get that information off your website also?
No, they actually have to go to the Southern Colorado Juneteenth Festival.
Okay, check that out. But the website, ppdiversitycouncilinc.org. The event tonight at 6 o'clock down in Fountain. And the party is at the Citadel Mall over the weekend. So
yep, that's what they're saying.
Okay. Shirley Martinez, thanks so much for celebrating with us today here on The Peak.
Thank you for having me.
And now, Jim Miller and the Peak Rants. He's just a guy, but he's ranting about the Ford Amphitheater. Jim Miller.
Uh-oh.
My one.
Yeah.
It was a really good show. I just wish we had the rant on the end on live stream because it was a really good show. Yeah, but you can't. But all this editing rather than just having a finished show. And we never end up doing it, so we just end up with silence for 5 minutes on the live stream. Well, the commercials are already long enough. So now it's just, okie doke. Well, another week of the peak has gone by. We're not here on Fridays. I get Friday off, but you can tune in for Dirk Hobbs. We mentioned him earlier in the show. He's the one who now owns the Indy, which is being called the Insider when it comes back out. Again, congratulations to Dirk. Well, you can join him for the business program that he does here in the same time slot, 3 to 4 p.m. here, but on Fridays. Folks, we have one more week. We're making announcements tonight. We're going to go. We did this last year. It was good for us. But we're going on hiatus for the month of July, just because what we do around here, it's really, it's a lot of work. And so many of you, you know what? You're not here in July anyway. You're running around the country. You're taking road trips and everything. And we decided that would be a great thing too. I happen to have a family. I have a lot of children. So, but we're going to be doing a lot of stuff during that time. Not going to be really resting, working on the peak, things that we don't get to do when we have to put out a program every day. And I'm preparing to teach broadcast journalism in the D11 school system. And that's going to be a lot of work putting that all together. So next week is going to be our last week until we take our break. So make sure to tune in. We have some special reports, special guests, things. We're still figuring out what to do on our last week before we say, hey, summer's here. So thank you for supporting the peak, listening to the peak, telling people about us. We're here. We're just getting started, saying the quiet stuff out loud because we need to do this for our community. And I would ask you, please go on our Facebook page so that, and like it. Go on our website, fill out our contact form so we have your information. So over the summer, we can be staying in touch with you, letting you know what's going on. Always something exciting in this citizen journalist venture that we're doing here, because the peak, we say the quiet stuff out loud. And as when you join us, we can say it even louder. Thank you so much for being part of the peak community for such a time as this. Have a great weekend. Happy Juneteenth. Shalom.